So in this case, the first question to ask is if we are trying to come up with a constraint for this operation, what's its context?
It is the patron class.
So it's in the patron class with constraints that talk about operations. We can go a step further and say which operation. So we're going to essentially have patron, and in this case there's going to be a double colon separating patron from the name of the particular operation. Okay, and we're allowed to go one step further and actually have the signature there. Okay, now the signature was expressed within the just the UML diagram part of things. So to fill in this part of the constraint, we're going to say context. We're going to have patron colon colon, and then the items currently checked out. And in this case, there's no arguments, or at least there's no explicit argument. In object-oriented languages, there's always an implicit argument of the object receiving the request.
So the patron itself.
So the patron itself is an argument, and we're going to qualify with respect to it, and so there's no explicit argument listed in the signature. However, there is a return value. Given the diagram, what would you think would be the type of the return value of this checked out operation?
It would be a loanable item. So.
Okay, but the requirement says the loanable items, plural.
Well, okay, yeah. So a list or some group of loanable items. Whatever that association becomes when you actually program it as.
Okay, so in this case, because of there's a plural in the expression of things, we know there's going to be more than one. And OCL provides us various, what it calls collection classes, ways of organizing things. And it's important in deciding exactly which collection class to use to think about the properties that are required. So now you use the word list, and list tends to have an order. In this case, do we care about the order?
Not particularly, I don't think.
Okay, so what other data structure is a collection class but doesn't care about order?
A set or an array or...
So OCL does have a set operation. So in this case, the return value for this operation is a set of loanable items.
Is it okay? Because when you use the word set, it makes me think that you're implying we could only check out one of a certain type of book, which may be a requirement, but I don't think that was explicit in the requirement statement. You could check out the same, like multiple copies of the same book, couldn't you?
There's nothing about either the requirements or this this OCL that prevents you from checking out multiple copies of the same book, because each of those is going to be a separate loanable item.
Okay, so
what it is preventing you from doing is checking out the same book twice at the same time.
Right, that's what I mean. So,
right.
So we can't do that. Even is that specified in the requirements, or is that just something we're now implying?
Okay, so great point. And so recall one of the subtleties of the original requirements analysis had to do with what happens if you check out a book, hold it overdue, you have money due on it, you return it, so it's not accruing any extra, okay, as far as the fine is concerned, but the system has to remember that, right? So in a sense, that checked out record has to still be there, okay, to hold that information. Now what happens if you try to check it out again? Okay, if we use a set here, we run the risk of clobbering the record and breaking things. So I think you've pointed out a place where we have to be very, very careful about doing this right. And in this case, it looks like, yes, we would clobber things in that particular situation. For operations that we're trying to model in OCL, the next question typically is, what are the preconditions? And that means the circumstances under which it is meaningful for the operation to execute. In the case of items currently checked out, as with most operations that provide a value without affecting any change in state, there are no preconditions. In OCL, we have two ways of dealing with that. We could have a precondition which has the value, the Boolean value true, which says it always is the case that it's okay to run this operation. Or we can leave out the precondition entirely, which has the same implications. And so for readability purposes, you may want to do that to make the overall constraint a little shorter. The third part in specifying operations is to specify which value is returned by the operation. To compute the items that are currently checked out, we merely navigate along the checked out association to the corresponding loanable items. So here's what the overall constraint looks like. We have the context, which had our signature, and then we had a postcondition. Now the postcondition lists another OCL keyword, which is result, and that stands in for whatever it is that's computed by that operation. And what needs to be computed in this case is those links in the checked out association which correspond to items checked out by this particular patron. Now, we already are restricted by our context to just the patron of interest for the query, and that patron is then going to be a partner in certain of the links in the association, and we want to get the partners at the other end, the loanable items that belong to that patron. So we navigate from patron, which is our context, through checked out to loanable item, and that will be the set of loanable items that are currently associated with that patron. And it once again leaves us in the situation where what does checked out mean? Okay, it means either you currently have them checked out and haven't returned them, or you checked them out, you held them too long, you returned them, and the system is remembering that you still owe something on them.